Darkness had swallowed the highway, leaving only the feeble glow of Sophie's car headlights slicing through the pitch-black night. She was driving home after a long shift at the diner, the kind that stretched her patience and tested her nerves. Her eyelids grew heavier with each mile, and the hum of the tires against the asphalt felt like a lullaby. That's when she saw him. A man stood on the side of the road, barely illuminated by her headlights. His face was hidden under the shadow of a wide-brimmed hat, and his hand was outstretched, thumb pointed skyward, a hitchhiker. Sophie's first instinct was to drive past. After all, who hitchhikes on such a desolate stretch of road? But something about him felt familiar, though she couldn't place why. Against her better judgment, she slowed to a stop. "Need a ride?" she called out. The man nodded without speaking and climbed into the back seat, his movements oddly fluid. Sophie glanced at him through the rearview mirror. He was impossibly pale, with hollow eyes that seemed to absorb the darkness rather than reflect it. "Where are you headed?" Sophie asked, forcing a casual tone. "Just ahead," he replied, his voice low and monotone. "Keep driving." The road stretched endlessly, and the silence in the car was suffocating. Every so often, Sophie glanced back at the mirror, only to see the man sitting perfectly still, his unblinking eyes fixed on her. "You can let me off at the gas station," he finally said. Relieved, Sophie nodded. As she approached the station, she turned to tell him they had arrived, but the back seat was empty. Her heart raced as she slammed on the brakes, pulling into the station. She whipped her head around, searching for any sign of him. Nothing. The attendant noticed her panic and stepped out of the store. "Are you okay, ma'am?" Sophie stammered. I picked up a hitchhiker. He was sitting right there in the back seat." "But he's gone!" The attendant's face grew grim. "You're not the first to say that. People around here talk about a man who died hitchhiking on this road years ago. They say he never made it to where he was going. Sometimes he gets picked up, but he never stays." Sophie's blood ran cold. She looked back at her car and froze. The back seat was no longer empty. The man's wide-brimmed hat rested neatly in the center, untouched. And she knew she wasn't driving home alone.